can feel kind of good, about this team's depth. And on the other hand, one little thing goes wrong. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Orioles 6, Pirates 3 last night in Bradenton, Florida. Jack Suwinski had an RBI double. He's now 8 for his past 22. That's a 364 clip. It's the spring, but that would be really, really nice if that were to continue in any form, to any extent. Mitch Keller was charged with 4 runs, 3 of those earned in 3 1/3 innings. Wasn't all that sharp with the command. Count me not at all concerned about Mitch. He's working on stuff. Brian Reynolds 2 for 3 with an RBI. It also became known that Ke'Bryan Hayes has a strain in his side. I know. Go ahead, get it all out of your system. And that compounds to a modest degree some of the standard setbacks that have occurred this spring. And I say standard because they happen to everybody, and they're not some conspiracy, and they're not some reflection of anything that the team is necessarily doing or not doing. It just happens. Injuries happen. It's sports. And where Key is concerned, of course, the Pirates have a capable, more than capable, replacement in Jared Triolo, who, by the way, is 5 for his past 8 at the plate and coming off a Gold Glove season. To my point about the depth being there to an extent. One might also say that about the catching position, where you've got Joey Bart as the clear starter, but you've got one of Andy Rodriguez or Henry Davis ideally stepping up, fulfilling at least part of their potential to be available in his stead. The problem is I can't perform this exercise a whole lot longer. There's not a lot more to be had when it comes to depth. The Pirates don't even have 3 outfielders they can count on, much less 4 or 5. And now Tommy Pham is banged up, so rewind to my little note there about Suwinski. You could really, really use Jack. You don't have, in my mind, a starting shortstop the way you'd want in a competitive lineup. In Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, I'm being respectful here. The guy does a lot of things well. He's been around. I don't know that any other team in baseball would be looking at him and saying, oh yeah, there's our shortstop, our everyday shortstop. But who's behind him? I don't know. Is it Leover Peguero? If so, that would require quite the leap. And if it's someone else, honestly, I'm not all that interested. The Pirates, of course, lead the universe in second baseman, but that doesn't mean that they've got a whole bunch that you'd feel great about if something were to happen to Nick Gonzalez, including just plain old poor performance. First base, of course, is a train wreck from top to bottom on the depth chart, beginning with Spencer Horwitz not being available and kind of continuing with Horwitz just being a platoon guy. And something already has obviously gone wrong, really wrong, at that position with Horwitz having the wrist issue, and the wrist issue being something that he brought here with him. That's a recurring thing. One of the big fallacies about my own approach to analyzing spring training, and I mean I am guilty of this every single spring, is that I'll map out lineups in an optimal setting. I'll map out depth charts in an optimal setting. I'll do it with rotations. I'll do it with bullpens. Even though by year's end, you'll see 45 to 50 names listed as having played for Pittsburgh that season. And somehow at the end, you're still just saying, well, yeah, but if only they hadn't. You can't. It's part of the game. It's part of baseball more than any other sport because of the volume of the schedule, because of the everyday repetitive nature of the sport. And this roster, my friends, whether it's the 26 or the 40, doesn't have it. It just doesn't have it. It doesn't have the capability to cover really anything going wrong, much less some unspeakable things that I could hypothetically bring up here on today's show and won't. But to kind of go at it, at least within parentheses, here, let's just say that if something happened to one of the more significant starters in this rotation, and you've got Andrew Heaney really struggling to find himself in the early portions of his Pittsburgh career, then it all gets blown up like to bits, and very, very quickly. Because when you start going into Dodger Stadium with the Pirates B team as it is, you're going to get slaughtered. You're not going to lose. You're going to get laughed out. And while this isn't the sexiest subject matter you can bring up related to this team, it just might be the most relevant one, because one of the many things you could have done by spending another $10, $20 million and getting to where the rest of the National League Central Division's teams are, is you could have had real depth, real competition. And if you brought in someone like Pham, you could justify that, but you would do so by saying he's here to just support so-and-so in case things go wrong. You don't bring in a Pham at that age and coming off the season he had and say this is your starting corner outfielder and expect to be taken seriously. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Dennis Cunningham, who says, DK, you said on your Monday program that you know what to expect from O'Neal Cruz. Could you tell us what that might be? That's a great way to word that, Dennis, and I probably deserve that because it sounds like I'm making some kind of prediction or even a analytical projection for what he might do in 2025. I'm not doing anything of the kind. What I mean when I say that is I know he's going to make solid contact. He's going to make freakish contact at times. And as such, he's going to hit his share of balls over the fences. He's going to hit his share of doubles, even triples. And based on his history, and of course his speed and stride, he's going to be very efficient in stealing bases, not necessarily with a huge number of them, but something, along the lines of 20, maybe even 25. And if you want to know something, and this has really become a non-conversation point, surprisingly, over the past few months, he's looking like he'll be able to carry himself sufficiently in center field. So what I meant when I said that, and if you'll recall, I bracketed him with just a couple other players in saying, I know what I'm going to get from Cruz. I know what I'm going to get from Brian Reynolds. I know what I'm going to get from Andrew McCutchen. And I stopped there when it came to hitters. Now, what would be ideal and what would be a separator here from Cruz to the other two guys I just mentioned, Reynolds and Kutch, is that Cruz still has that big breakout ceiling floating around over his head. Cruz still has that seismic potential where he could blow up in a good way at any given time. This is the first year in which Cruz will go in a while without having to be overcoming any sort of issue, whether it's being a rookie, whether it's that serious ankle injury. I had a talk with him early in the spring down in Bradenton about his offseason, and he lit up. He was mostly just referencing things that he had done to just keep getting better as opposed to keep getting healthier or more stable. So I'm not inclined to put some sort of mythical roof over his head and say he can't go higher than this. That would be insane. The talent is just too much to do something like that, and he's still young enough and has had enough setbacks from the negative context that you could very much see something like that taking place. So I'm not throwing numbers out there because I know how that goes, but he can be a lot better than he's been. And I also think at the same time, that he's raised his own floor where you're not going to see those, oh no, this guy's a total dud type of slumps that we saw a little too often early in his career? I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody checking out Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.